Good morning, Kuhner country. Okay, history was made yesterday. President Trump at the G7 summit in France, actually in the famous Palace of Versailles, which is the palace of all the French kings, signed officially, surrounded by Macron, surrounded by other G7 leaders, the Memorandum of Understanding with Iran. It is now formally signed. The Iranians signed remotely as well. And so, starting yesterday, we now have an interim peace deal with Iran. The war, at least for now, is over. It is officially over. Furthermore, the actual text of the Memorandum of Understanding has been publicly released. The White House personally sent me a copy. I'm not special. They sent it to many people in the media. And so I got the actual copy. I went through it again, compared it to what other media outlets, newspapers, and websites, they republished it as well, word for word. It was the exact same thing. Now, let me just say a couple of things, and I'd like to invite as many callers today as possible. I think we need to hear from Kuhner country. This is today, in many ways, not my show, but your show. 617-266-6868 is the number. Number one, this is one of the most consequential peace deals from one of the most consequential wars in recent American history. I think there's now no question that what happens after last night is going to affect us, impact the Middle East, impact the world for, I think, many years to come. When I did my show yesterday and I laid out the 14 provisions that are in the peace agreement, I was, as I mentioned on air yesterday, I was savaged. I mean, I was just mercilessly attacked by, not all, but by some listeners. And they said I was making it up. I was basing this off of rumors, apparently on the internet, that I was wrong, that no way the president would have signed anything close to what I was describing yesterday. And as I said yesterday, but I want to repeat it again, I don't just comment on something I read on the internet. I have never done that in my entire career. I will never do that, ever. I was reporting on what the Israeli media had leaked. They had gotten a hold of the actual text. I based it on multiple newspapers who clearly had gotten a hold of the text as well. I was then briefed by a senior Trump administration official who confirmed what was in the text of the actual agreement. And then someone, I can't say who, leaked to me the actual Memorandum of Understanding. So when I went on the air yesterday, it's not Jeff Kuhner making it up or Jeff Kuhner wanting to give Trump a black eye, or Jeff Kuhner looking to sabotage or hurt Donald Trump or help the Democrats in the midterms. I'm sorry, if you believe that, you're on crack. I want the Democrats to be destroyed in November. I have backed this president for 10 years. When there was a stolen election, I was one of the few who kept saying over and over, even if it meant the cost of my career, that Biden and the Democrats stole the election. I campaigned for him in 2016, in 2020, in 2024. I want this man to succeed. My fear from the outset of this war, when it began nearly 4 months ago, is that it would lead to a quagmire and that in the end, it would so politically tarnish or damage Trump that it may or would lead to a defeat in the midterms, which for me would be a catastrophe for the country. My motives were patriotic. My motives were to help my president, to protect my president. I had his back, and I was giving counsel to the best of my ability to what I thought was in his best interests and in the best interests of the country. Now, period, full stop. You look now at the actual text of the agreement that has been released. You can just, yesterday's show, you just repeat the monologue of yesterday's show. It is exactly what I reported on yesterday. Exactly. Almost to the comma, to the letter. So I'm not going to repeat it over and over. I'm just going to give you the highlights. You can read the actual agreement itself. It's written in a kind of a diplomatic legalese, so it's boring. But, you know, if you want to go through it, go through it. So I'm just going to give you the highlights. And then I want to hear from you whether you like the deal or don't like the deal. You know my position. I think this is a horrible deal. Nothing has changed. Nothing. I believe President Trump gave away the farm and got very little in return. I think it makes the Iranian regime, the Ayatollahs, the largest state sponsor of terrorism in the world, much wealthier and much richer. And I believe that they now have emerged much stronger after this deal than they were on February 27th, a day before the war. And to me, to be honest, I think I'm just stating the sky is blue. I think it's pretty obvious at this point, but that's my opinion. You can disagree with me. That's fine. But I want to read to you the highlights, and then I want to get all of your callers and Kuhner country, your take on this historic memorandum of understanding. So, number one, what the deal now does is that it says there must be a stoppage in fighting, a ceasefire, that affects not just the United States and Iran, but like I said yesterday, this affects Israel, Hezbollah, and Lebanon. So Israel cannot fire a single bomb, rocket, or missile against Hezbollah. If they do, they are in violation. Now, so Israel's hands are completely tied under this agreement. I'm just stating a fact. Number two, and I'll read to you the second point verbatim, because you're not going to believe me, so I'm just going to read it. The United States of America and the Islamic Republic of Iran undertake to respect each other's sovereignty and territorial integrity and to refrain from interfering in each other's internal affairs. So, in plain English, we are not going to go about trying to bring about regime change. We are not going to arm the internal opposition or fund the internal opposition or support dissidents to try to overthrow the Iranian regime. According to the deal, we now say we respect Iran's sovereignty completely and we vow to not interfere in their internal affairs. So this guarantees the position and power of the mullahs and the IRGC. They now are secure in the fact that they now maintain their grip on power in Iran. To me, this is a betrayal of the opposition. It is a betrayal of the 40,000 who died. Because now we're basically telling the Iranians we don't care that the mullahs are in power and that they'll remain in power. And we're going to do nothing by the treaty. We're legally now obligated to not help the democratic opposition movement overthrow the savages in power. A massive concession to the Iranians. Number three, they're going to negotiate for 60 days. This is also extendable. If they believe they need more time, they'll take more time. Now, the United States agrees to remove the naval blockade immediately. The Islamic Republic of Iran agrees to lift their blockade of the Strait of Hormuz, and that the United States further undertakes, I'm going to read to you straight from Clause 4, undertakes to remove its forces from the proximity of the Islamic Republic of Iran within 30 days after the final deal. So basically, we're going to start sending our forces out of the Persian Gulf after they sign a final deal. Another key demand of the Iranians. Now, this is the big one, and I don't want to rush it. So it's Clause 5. There's 14 clauses. I'm not going to go through every one of them. It's about 3 or 4 I want to go through. Okay, we have a deal. It is now formally signed. President Trump signed this historic memorandum of understanding with Iran last night at the at the Palace of Versailles in France, in front of Macron, who is the president of France, who was the host of the G7 summit. But Keir Starmer was there, Meloni, the prime minister of Italy, Merz, the chancellor of Germany, Carney, the prime minister of Canada. They applauded. It was an historic moment. Iran signed their side as well, but that was done remotely. And they have now everyone has now released the actual text of the agreement. So I have it right in front of me. You can access it pretty much anywhere. All major newspapers have reproduced it. Most major news sites have also reproduced it. Anyway, I got I got a copy of it sent by the White House, not just to me, but to other media outlets, and I was on that list. So I had it yesterday. This is now Clause 5. Okay, so I've just to sum up what I was saying. There's now going to be a ceasefire across the entire region. This affects both Israel and Hezbollah in Lebanon. Israel is prevented from even firing back at Lebanon. They cannot fire a bomb, a missile, nothing. It completely ties their hands. By the way, the Israelis are going berserk over this deal. Bibi is saying privately it's a massive sellout. The entire Israeli media is condemning this deal, saying this is the mother of all betrayals, that Israel cannot abide, and they say eventually will not abide by this deal. But anyway, this is one of the provisions. The United States vows to not overthrow the Iranian regime or to interfere in Iran's internal affairs. So, as far as I'm concerned, this is a betrayal of the pro-democracy opposition movement and the 40,000 who got slaughtered just several months ago. We're not going to rescue them. We're not going to aid them. We're not going to help them. We're not going to arm them. Basically now they're on their own. 3, U.S. forces are to leave the Persian Gulf within 30 days after the signing of the final deal, which means in practice, we are going to have much less influence now in the Persian Gulf. We had a strong military presence in that area. Now our forces are going to have to leave. We're now going to have less of a presence, less of an influence in the area. Now, Clause 5. I'm going to read to you the entire clause. I hate to bore you with this, but you need to hear this because it's that important. Upon the signing of this memorandum of understanding, the Islamic Republic of Iran will make arrangements using its best efforts for the safe passage of commercial vessels. Here it is now. With no charge for 60 days only from the Persian Gulf to the Sea of Oman and vice versa. So, in plain English, yes, the Strait of Hormuz will be reopened and there will be no tolls for 60 days only. It then goes on to say, it's a lot of, they're going to have to demine it, and I don't want to give you all the technical details, but then comes the second part in this clause. So, it's not permanent toll-free, it's only 60 days, as long as the ceasefire. That's it. Here's the second part. The Islamic Republic of Iran will conduct dialogue with the Sultanate of Oman. Oman is Iran's ally, and they both want to control the Strait of Hormuz, to define the future administration and maritime services in the Strait of Hormuz, in discussions with other Persian Gulf littoral states, that's Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, UAE, Qatar, Bahrain, all the Gulf, the Persian Gulf, the Gulf Council, or the Persian Gulf countries, in line with applicable international law and the sovereign rights of coastal states of the Strait of Hormuz. So, in plain English, they have a right to have influence and control over the Strait of Hormuz, and they are going to be discussing those rights with those key Gulf states whose oil and all of their energy products goes through the Strait of Hormuz. i.e., we're going to charge a fee. We're going to be providing now the security and the maritime arrangements going into the future regarding these 6 key oil-producing countries. It goes through us, and we're going to make a separate deal with them. So there will be tolls or fees, there's no question now, after the 60 days. It effectively now says the Strait of Hormuz is now under Iran's influence. Now, number 6. Okay, here it is. The United States of America undertakes with regional partners to develop a definitive mutually agreed plan with at least $300 billion for the reconstruction and economic development of the Islamic Republic of Iran. A $300 billion reconstruction fund. Just very quickly, this was last night at the Palace of Versailles, which is absolutely stunning if you've ever been to Paris. It's actually just outside of Paris. It's where some of the most impressive, prominent French kings, that's where they had their palace, Louis XIV being the most famous. So it's just a stunning castle/palace. Anyway, Trump officially signed the Memorandum of Understanding. Macron, the president of France, was to his left. Macron's wife was to his right. Rubio was standing right behind the president. There were other G7 leaders around the table. And the moment he signed, you're going to hear someone say, bravo. That's French President Macron. The G7 leaders loved that Trump signed the deal. Roll cut to Mike.
This is historical. Yes.
Bravo.
And Trump was saying this is historic. This is truly an historic deal. And everyone's looking, and they knew that it's history. They made history yesterday. There's no question. Okay, so I want to go through Clause 6 again. So I've outlined everything so far. Here is Clause 6, okay, because this is what I was told yesterday I was lying about. I was told that I'm a liar, that I'm a propagandist, that I'm out to destroy Trump, that I'm secretly working for the Democrats. What else? Oh, I'm a Canadian. I'm not an American. I should leave the United States. I mean, I could go on and on. So here it is. Okay. By the way, this is the same text that I had yesterday because I had the actual text yesterday because it was leaked to me. That's why I knew what I was talking about. But anyway, here it is. Okay. Clause 6. The United States of America undertakes with regional partners to develop a definitive mutually agreed plan with at least $300 billion for the reconstruction and economic development of the Islamic Republic of Iran. Now, they say this fund will be fully developed and operational as part of the final deal after 60 days. Now, here's the last part of the clause. All required licenses, waivers, and permissions needed for the relevant financial transactions will be granted by the United States of America. So, in plain English, Iran is such a heavily sanctioned country that to authorize the fund and then the money from the fund to flow into Iran for rebuilding roads, highways, hospitals, schools, factories, industry, in other words, to rebuild the country. Only the United States can grant the permission and the waivers for the money to be transferred into the Iranian central bank, which is where the money is going to go to. And the $300 billion, as I said 3-4 times yesterday, but I want to repeat it, not 1 cent of that is American taxpayer dollars. So it's not our money. It's not like we're taking taxpayer money and putting it into the fund, but it's going to be the Saudi Arabians, the Kuwaitis, the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, all these Persian Gulf countries. They're all ponying up basically about $50 billion apiece, 50 to 60 billion apiece. It's blood money. It's basically they're going to blackmail Iran to not bomb them or destroy their oil infrastructure. That's essentially what this is all about. Okay? But anyway, so there is a reconstruction fund, and it is $300 billion. Now, as I said yesterday, and I want to repeat it, I don't care if the money comes from Mars. Yes, I understand it's not our money. Good. I just don't want them to get $300 billion, period. I don't care where the money comes from. So, I know the administration's been at it, but it's not our money. It's not our money. Listen, buddy, I don't care if it comes from the Inuit or from the Eskimos. I don't care where the money comes from. I don't want them to get $300 billion, period. It's like giving Hitler $300 billion. I don't care who gives it. I just don't want him to have it. Okay, but let that go. Now, number 7, okay? The United States of America undertakes to terminate all types of sanctions against the Islamic Republic of Iran. Now, it's a long clause. I'll sum it up for you. They want every sanction removed. United Nations Security Council resolutions, IAEA Board of Governors sanctions, all unilateral U.S. sanctions, primary and secondary, when there's a final, as part of the final deal. And so eventually all sanctions imaginable will be lifted on Iran. They will be able to fully trade with the rest of the world, something they have not had since 1979. Now, what do we get? Here it is. This is now Clause 8. The Islamic Republic of Iran reaffirms, that's a very important word, because their argument is, well, we promised this to Obama. We promised this under his agreement. We signed the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. How many times do we have to tell you we don't want a nuclear bomb? So, the Islamic Republic of Iran, quote, reaffirms that it shall not procure, meaning purchase, or develop nuclear weapons. Now, here's the kicker. The United States of America and the Islamic Republic of Iran have agreed to resolve the disposition of stockpiled enriched material pursuant to a mechanism that will be mutually agreed upon during this 60-day ceasefire. Now, they say the minimum is, well, maybe you can just dilute the enriched uranium under the supervision of the IAEA. But basically what they're saying is, we promise, again, not to have a nuclear weapon. However, the enriched uranium, we kick that to the ceasefire, the negotiations during the ceasefire. And maybe we'll end up diluting it. It also says, quote, the two parties, U.S. and Iran, also agree to discuss the issue of enrichment and other mutually agreed matters related to the Islamic Republic of Iran's nuclear needs based on a satisfactory framework being agreed upon in the final deal. So in other words, we're going to kick that to negotiations as well. It's all vague. Anything that puts specific enforcement mechanisms to force them to give up the enriched uranium, to say you cannot have the capacity to enrich uranium going into the future. They're centrifuges. Any attempt now for them to enrich weapons grade or potential weapons grade uranium or plutonium, that's all in the 60-day negotiations. That's to be, quote, hammered out later. So look at what the Iranians get tangibly up front, and look what we get. Essentially vague promises. Number 9. They just say they agreed to maintain the status quo in terms of the nuclear program, any new sanctions. And here it is. Clause number 10. The United States of America undertakes that immediately upon the signing of this MOU, the U.S. Department of Treasury will issue waivers for the export of Iranian crude oil, petroleum products, derivatives, all services, everything, immediately. Plain English, Iran can now start selling its oil immediately on the international world market. And then there's one more clause. I want to say it coming back. It's about the $100 billion in frozen assets. Okay, I want to ask all of you, is this a victor's peace? Is this a peace deal that you think Trump can sell to the American people? Is it in America's interests? Or do you believe, like I do, this is essentially a negotiated defeat? That at the negotiating table, they have snatched defeat from the jaws of victory. Now, let me just give you the final. There's other clauses, but the last relevant one. And it's about the frozen assets. First of all, I want to apologize. I made a factual error yesterday. I said there was $100 billion in frozen assets that the Iranians were going to have access to. It's actually $120 billion. So it's even more than I thought and what I reported. And so here is exactly what the clause now says. The United States of America undertakes to make fully available for use the frozen or restricted funds and assets of the Islamic Republic of Iran upon the implementation of this memorandum of understanding. The United States of America and the Islamic Republic of Iran will mutually agree on the procedures related to the release of these funds during the negotiations. Such funds, whether retained in the original account or transferred, shall be made fully usable for payment, here it comes, to any ultimate beneficiary designated by the Central Bank of the Islamic Republic of Iran. The United States of America undertakes to issue all necessary licenses and authorizations accordingly. Okay, that's the full clause. Remember, Iran is a heavily sanctioned country. You can't do business with Iran. You can't give money to Iran. So what they're saying is, we're now going to give them access to $120 billion of frozen assets. Not all at once. It's going to be haggled, negotiated, but it's all going to go to the Central Bank of the Islamic Republic of Iran. Who controls the Central Bank of Iran? The IRGC and the regime. So they're going to get all that money. And the United States is going to provide all of the permissions, all of the waivers, so all of that money will eventually be returned to the mullahs and to the ayatollahs. Now, final point. When pressed yesterday, because now Iran gets money up front, it gets right away the ability to sell all of its oil on the international market, and they've got a lot of oil to sell, and they're going to take a big bite out of those frozen assets, a bite out of that apple, right away. In fact, I think the check, was cut by Trump yesterday. The Iranians want $24 billion up front, right away, just for starting the negotiations. Trump is saying more like $12 billion. Anyway, we don't know a final number, but Iran will have the right to sell their oil immediately, and then they will get between $12 to $24 billion within the next 48 to 72 hours. And then on Friday, they begin the nuclear negotiations for 60 days. So they're going to be flush with cash before they even begin to negotiate Iran's nuclear program, their enriched uranium, and their enrichment capacity. Now, let me just say one final point, and then I want to go to the phone lines. I remember when MAGA, myself included, went apoplectic, rightly so, when the dear litter gave Barack Hussein Obama, gave the mullahs $1.7 or $1.8 billion in cash on pallets. Which, of course, that's just with 1.8 billion. And the mullahs used it to fund Hamas, to fund Hezbollah, to fund their terrorist proxies, to build up their ballistic missiles, their drones, and to secretly continue to work on their nuclear weapons program. With the oil that they're going to sell right away, combined with the 12 to 24 billion that they're going to get from the frozen assets, this is 30 times more than what Obama gave to the Iranians in 2015. And Trump is going to be cutting the checks. So what this deal does, I don't care how you spin it, it makes the Iranian regime, the largest state sponsor of terrorism, richer and wealthier than ever before. In fact, if we're going to be honest, you go back to February 27, the day before, Iran is now much richer than it was than it was on February 27th. It is much more stronger in terms of its position, control over the Strait of Hormuz, influence over the region, all of this money now, they're going to be flush with cash, than they were before the war began, February 27th. The position of the hardliners and the position of the regime is much stronger now than it was on February 27th. I'm sorry, I'm just calling it the way I see it. And this is the greatest deal in the history of man, according to Trump? This is waving a... By the way, he was using Neville Chamberlain's phrase. I don't know who told him to do that. This is peace in our time? Notice what's left out. Any limits on Iran's ballistic missile program? None. That they will not fund their terrorist proxies across the entire region? Nothing. It says nothing. So, I'm sorry. This is a horrible deal. This is a bad deal. This is not a deal. I thought we won the war. You look at this deal, and I'm sorry, this looks like Iran won the war. What we have now done is we have taken a crushing military victory over Iran. And at the negotiating table, it has now become a diplomatic defeat. It breaks my heart to say it. I take no joy in saying this. But if we're going to be honest, that's the problem now with this deal. President Trump has now signed it. The mullahs have signed it. Of course, they'd be crazy not to sign this deal. And just so that you know, in private, Marco Rubio has told the president, don't sign it. Pete Hegseth told him, don't sign it. CIA Director John Ratcliffe said, don't sign it. Almost every Republican in Congress has told him, don't sign it. You know who's now telling him to sign it? the Democrats. The most stunning reversal in the last 24 hours. And I'll just quote you one, and that's it because I want to go to the phones. Radical left-wing Senator Raphael Warnock of Georgia said he supports this deal. He will actually vote for this deal when it comes up for a vote in Congress. Why? You can look it up. He said it on X. Because this deal makes America in a much weaker position. And because it puts America in a much weaker position, he believes that this will humiliate Trump and the Democrats will go Thunderdome on him in the November elections. The Democrats now may end up supporting this deal because they believe it undermines and weakens the United States, it emboldens and strengthens Iran, and it will politically cripple Trump going into November. And the way they're going to justify it is, well, we had to end the war. I know it's a bad deal, a horrendous deal, but hey, it's Donald Trump. We had to end the war. (617-266-6868) I begged the president not to sign it. He signed it, and now we're going to have to live with it. And so my question to you, and I am open to every side, every point of view. And unlike my critics, I'm not going to accuse you of treason or tell you to go back to your ancestral homeland or insult your wife or call you a traitor or whatever. I'm not going to play that game. I'm going to take it on the merits because I respect you. Is this a deal you think President Trump can sell? Is this simply the cost and the price of ending this war? Are you happy in the end with this deal? Do you think it's a victory for the United States? Or like me, do you think this is a negotiated defeat? 617-266-6868. Now you know the rest of the story, as Paul Harvey used to say. Rick in Tennessee. Thanks for holding, Rick, and welcome. Rick, hold on. You're coming in garbled. Do we have a clear connection, Mike? Okay, Rick, let's try now. Go ahead.
Okay.
Yes, loud and clear. Go ahead.
Okay. You're spot on with your decimation of information that's being put forth by Trump. However, I think Trump's doing the old rope-a-dopa. This is so bad. If the Democrats like it, there's a problem, a big, big problem with it, and everybody knows that. Hillary Clinton supposedly likes it. These G7 failed leaders, they all love it. So, I don't think for 1 minute. I think this is a rope-a-dopa that Trump's putting forth, is knowing full well that Netanyahu is never going to be able to adhere to the ceasefire, on the Gaza Strip in any place, because the Hezbollah and the Iranian-backed militias, somebody's going to shoot off a missile, and Israel is going to respond, and the whole thing goes up in smoke. I mean, what's the sanction against Israel? What are we going to do? We could cut off some foreign aid, but they're going to defend themselves, and Trump knows that. So I think this whole idea is, hey, I'm doing everything I can. I'm bending over backwards. I'm giving you the kitchen sink, and look what they do. Start the bombing, and this time, finish the job.
I hope you're right, Rick. I really, really hope you're right. I hope, that this is, Trump playing 3D chess and saying, look, I gave him everything. You cannot be more generous than this. You just can't. I think it's humanly impossible. And saying, and look, they couldn't control Hezbollah. Hezbollah started to fire rockets into Israel. Israel had no right, had no choice but to respond. And so, again, we got to go back to bombing. I hope you're right. Rick, I want to play a cut and I want to get your reaction because it's come out now. Netanyahu is furious. Furious. He feels profoundly betrayed by this deal. The Israeli media is going berserk. It doesn't matter, left, right, center, every newspaper, every media outlet, every TV channel, they are denouncing this deal to the high heavens. So Trump is asked specifically, well, the Israelis are very angry, and they're saying, what do we get out of this? And I want you to listen to Trump's response. Roll cut 3, Mike.
Think of what Israel's getting. They're not going to be nuked. It's very simple. I told Bibi, your biggest risk was that they drop a nuclear weapon into the middle of Israel. They'd only need one, and there would be no more Israel. Think of it, Bibi. You got the most important thing that you were asking for is that. So I think they're happy.
Now, they're not happy, but his argument is, and I want to get your take on this, Rick, look, don't fire a single bomb or a single missile. Don't disrupt this ceasefire because I'm going to get you your central demand, which is that Iran will never have a nuclear weapon. You're not going to get nuked. What say you, Rick?
He's being, he's like I said, he's doing the rope-a-dope. Netanyahu knows that, that Iran will never be able to comply with the language that, the dismantle Hezbollah and no more money to the proxies. These people are deceitful. Their past history is they've broken every deal. They'll tell you, yeah, we've got a deal. We're smiling. And then on the back channel is they're going on with business as usual. There are warring people. It's the religious war. People are going to get that through their heads. These people will go to their death for Allah.
Oh, well, Allah Rick, you nailed it. And Rick, that's why I don't want to give him $300 billion from our reconstruction fund. I don't want to give him $120 billion in unfrozen assets. And I don't want to lift all sanctions so they can sell all of this oil. Because that's the one regime you don't want hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars pouring into. Now, I get it. It's not our money. I know. But it's still it's somebody's money. And they're going to have it. And you're dead on. Because with that kind of money, they're going to fund a lot of terrorism. They're going to buy a lot of weapons. And my fear is eventually they will buy a nuclear bomb. They're not going to abide by this. And now they're going to, you're basically creating a financial superpower in the Middle East. This is big, big money. We're not talking $1 billion or $2 billion or $3 billion. We're talking hundreds of billions of dollars. So, from your lips to God's ears, I hope Hezbollah starts, I don't want any Israeli dead, but, Hezbollah breaks the ceasefire. They can't control themselves. They start raining rockets on Israel. Israel has no choice but to respond. And bang, the ceasefire is over. The deal is over. So from your lips to God's ears, Rick. 617-266-6868. Chris in Milford. Thanks for holding, Chris, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff. How you doing?
Good. How are you, Chris?
Doing all right. So I'm going to take a contrarian, from your point of view, perspective on this whole thing.
Sure, go ahead. Chris?
To putting it back together to the way it was before.
So, sorry, Chris. Can you just start from the beginning? For some reason, you dropped on us for like 10, 15 seconds.
Okay, yeah. It's similar to like when you break a nice vase, you have no hope of putting it back together the way it was before. So ultimately, we're eating crow in this deal. It has to be done. I honestly don't know why Trump listened to the serpents in his administration to even start a conflict with Iran. We're coming up on the midterms. So it took away focus of winning the midterms. So he's really running risk of being a lame duck president come November. It seems like he squandered his mandate from the American people with mass deportations. We're not seeing that anymore. We don't have voter ID. We just saw in California the rampant corruption in their election system, which is going to continue. And we got, entangled in another foreign war for something that didn't have an imminent threat. Until he left the Iranian nuclear deal that Obama had forged, they weren't enriching uranium up until the level that they did after he left. So it's a useless conflict that we got involved in. The world is on a tipping point economically because oil is power, and we're running out of it because of the stalemate in the Gulf. I think the last 20 years or so, or 15 years of DEI in the military has hollowed us out. We still haven't rebuilt that. So you're seeing how effective ineffective our military is on the world stage. We're out of supplies. We can't continue the conflict. I think that's why he's, in a sense, suing for peace. And it's not from a place of strength, but he fell into another conflict that, we already know the results of it. It doesn't benefit America. And, so that's my perspective on it. Hopefully we get something good out of it in the end, but we're not some moral authority on the world stage. Like, we started this conflict killing almost 200 Iranian girls in a school. And I think when we have these numbers that are so big in places so far away, we lose the human perspective of it. Just think of your own children, waking up, going to school, and being killed because of the aggression of another country. The conflict in Gaza that's been going on 2 years, it's probably reasonable to say over 100,000 civilians have died over there, in supposed response to October 7th. Like, we need to rein in Israel's aggression. I don't see Iran as the aggressor in the region. And to say Iran funds Hezbollah, maybe we fund the Taliban. It seems like we're on both sides of the conflict for the benefit of defense contractors and the neocons. And I'm really tired of it. I'm a 40-year-old male. I have a 17-year-old son. I want America to be economically strong, and maybe the best way to export our vision of what the world should be through economic strength and economic value that we export, similar to like a missionary proselytizes Christianity to other parts of the world. We proselytize Western values, Western economic growth to places that don't have.
Oh, I hear you, Chris. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay. I do want people who agree with the deal or think Trump did the right thing. I want to encourage you, obviously, to call. I want every voice in Kuhner country to be heard. This is from Mark on Messenger, who does support Trump and I support Trump as well, but he supports Trump on this deal. And here is what he wrote to me. Jeff, on Messenger. Jeff, I am just happy that this war is over, that oil prices are coming down, gas prices are coming down, other prices, i.e. inflation, will be coming down as a result of it. Nobody is getting killed. And more importantly, Iran will not have a nuclear weapon ever. And after 60 days, let's see what happens. And as far as the midterms goes, I think we'll be fine. And on that note, I'm glad we can agree or disagree on things without being hostile towards each other. And that's what makes us so great. Well, I agree with you. I agree with you completely, Mark. 617. To me, that's the whole point. First Amendment, freedom of expression. That to me is the essence of America. Everybody has the right to express their opinion according to their values, their beliefs, their conscience. And not to have their motives impugned just because you disagree with somebody. 617-266-6868. Lines are jammed. Andy in Milford. Thanks for holding, Andy, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi, Andy.
Hi, Jeff. Right out of the gate yesterday, I knew right then and there I was going to have to take at least a day to get properly prepared for my own remarks concerning the deal, and I took some time to get some like some other perspective on it, and I've got some prepared things. I'm just going to go through them in lightning fashion. I particularly wanted yesterday on his show to give his input into this Iran deal. Now, Jim Rickards is very well read in both the economy and strategic intelligence, but I'm just going to go through some quick bullet points. And Bannon, by the way, was a naval officer in that part of the world back in 1979, so he's far from being an uninformed person in those affairs. But very quickly, these were Bannon's points, and they actually reflect what's been my position all along. Keep sanctions in place, don't give them money, and here's an interesting twist that Bannon gave. Use their money to give our military people that have been in that part of the world fighting this thing a bonus. And then, bring down their economy, no kinetic activity. Now, here were Jim Rickards' points. We need to be able to use currency as a weapon. Keep economic pressure on the Iranian people. That would drive them to the streets. They have withstood the bombings. That's one of the considerations about kinetic activity. But I want to get to the very important point that Rickards made, and this actually at least gave me a lot of peace. Continued escalation would shut down world economy, and this is the reason for the bad deal.
Oh, he's right.
Now,
no, Andy, he's right. And I'm going to play, I've got a couple of cuts I want to play for the audience where, to be honest, I don't know if Trump should have said it. In a way, I appreciate his candor and his honesty, but maybe some things you shouldn't tell the whole world because the Iranians are listening. They're listening to every word that he says. Now, President Trump is extremely tired. He's going on very low sleep for multiple days. It's been a whirlwind schedule. And when you're tired, your filter, your guard is a little bit down. And so things will slip through your mouth. You're like, maybe I shouldn't have said that. But Trump essentially admitted yesterday. He admitted it. He said, I had no choice. I had to sign the deal. In other words, he was under duress. He was under pressure. And he admitted, well, the midterms are coming up and I'm going to get destroyed if I don't get oil and gas down. But he said, I had a bigger problem, which is that when the Iranians blocked the Strait of Hormuz and cut off so much of the world's oil and natural gas supply, the world economy was going to tank. He said it was inevitable. It was coming. We were just weeks away from a global economic meltdown, basically a world depression. And he said, if you think the United States would have been immune to it, you're wrong. So by controlling the Strait of Hormuz and then by blockading the Strait of Hormuz, the Iranians had their foot on the neck of the world's economy. And Trump literally said, our stock market would crash. You would see gas and oil eventually go up to 150 or $200 a barrel. And I would be the next Herbert Hoover. He literally said that. And so he said, I don't want to be Herbert Hoover. The last thing I ever wanted to be is Herbert Hoover. So he said, ultimately, economic pressures, global, international economic pressures forced my hand, and I had no choice but to sign this deal, even if it meant basically giving away the farm. It was, to me, a shocking admission. Even if it's true, and I think it is true, I don't know if you want to let the Iranians know they have that kind of power and influence. More next. Okay, I'm going to play you a couple of cuts, all of you. You need to hear it. because I think Trump really, from the heart, he spoke from the heart, and I think he gave the real reason why he signed the deal. Yes, he did say politically he felt the midterms, the high gas prices, oil, inflation. He looked at the internal polling. He said, look, I don't want to lose the House and the Senate because, he was open. He was frank. He goes, I'm going to get impeached. And if they get enough votes in the Senate, I may even be found guilty. I may be convicted. So look, the war was just not popular, and I had to politically end it as quickly as possible. So he was under a tight time frame. He was feeling a lot of pressure, and eventually he said, I had no choice. But he said there was a much bigger concern, and that is that once Iran seized the initiative by blockading the Strait of Hormuz and cutting off 1/5 of the world's natural gas's oil supply, he said that was putting so much pressure on the global economy that Trump said, I was convinced it would trigger at a minimum a world recession, if not maybe even a global depression. And the United States, yeah, we're a big economy. Yes, we have a lot of our own natural gas and oil, but we wouldn't be immune from these massive economic aftershocks. And he said, I didn't, get elected to become, his words, the next Herbert Hoover. So to prevent an economic, his words, catastrophe, I had to make a deal. And he's basically saying, wink, wink, I had to give up a lot more than I wanted. Listen now to President Trump. This is him at the G7 press conference. Again, he's tired. I don't know if he should have said it. I mean, I appreciate his candor and his honesty. But now by saying it, you've literally told the Iranians, inadvertently, obviously, you've got a lot of power. You've actually emerged from this war with a power and influence that you've never had before. Because remember, on February 27th, they had no control over the Strait of Hormuz, no influence over the Strait of Hormuz. They had no control over the world's global oil supply. Now, this war has turned them from a regional to some ways a global power. Listen now to President Trump saying, you really want to know why I had to sign this deal and push for this deal? Roll cut 9, Mike.
I didn't want to see economic catastrophe. If you kept this going, that could have happened. But all I know is every time we talked about the possibility of peace, the stock market shot up like a rocket ship. It never went down. They didn't like it. The people, the stock market is more brilliant than anybody there is, including the people on the stage, other than me, of course. Let's see. I don't know. What do you think, Scott? Is the stock market more brilliant than you?
No, sir.
Oh, that's a terrible statement. All right. The stock market is quite brilliant. And every time we said something amazing, like we're going to settle, it would go up. And every time we said something negative, like, guess what, we're not going to be able to settle, it would go down very big, Peter, right? Very, very big. Tells you something.
So there you go. I did not want to see an economic catastrophe. The stock market was telling him the world economy needed peace. It wanted peace. It wanted the Strait of Hormuz reopened. It wanted the naval blockade lifted. And basically, the economy forced his hand. Or, to be more accurate, economic global pressures forced Trump's hand. Now, listen to Trump saying, you think I'm a stupid man? If this triggers a depression or a recession, they're not going to compare me as they are now to Theodore Roosevelt or Ronald Reagan. They're going to compare me to Herbert Hoover. And that's the last man I want to be compared to. Roll cut 9A, Mike.
And I've studied presidents, some good, some bad, some great. Not too many are great. And some really bad. We had one just recently. And the one president I did not want to be was the late, great Herbert Hoover. I didn't want that. And who knows what would have happened. But bad things happen, so...
Now, I'm just going to play two more cuts because I want to be fair to the president to give him full context. He says, by the way, it's not just that I didn't want to be Hoover and a massive depression, but, you know, all of the leaders in this room, meaning the G7, all of them, the Europeans, the Canada, all of them, Germany, France, England, Italy, all of them, Japan, all of them, they love this deal because they wanted the strait opened and they wanted the war over because it was bad for their economies, for the world economy. It was bad for business. Roll cut 9B, Mike.
The past 2 days have provided a chance to discuss the details of the deal with the closest friends and allies, the heads of countries. They were all here, a lot of them, far more than the 7, as you know, a lot of them. And they put out a statement. I think President Macron, who did a great job, by the way, did a really fan, him and Bridget, they did a great job, but they all put out statements saying they love this deal because they want to see it over.
And so he's then pressed saying, look, you know, but Mr. President, why don't you finish the job? Why didn't you go in and deliver the knockout blow? Maybe forcibly reopen the strait using our Navy, resume the bombing, just, you know, kick the teeth out of the mullahs, and then force them to submission, to sign basically a surrender. And Trump said, how long did you want me to keep the war going? Another month? Another 2 months? The economy, the world economy, could not withstand more months of war. Roll cut 9C, Mike.
Don't forget, if we were going to drop bombs, let's say we went another month, another 2, 3 months, maybe weeks, could be another 3 months, could be whatever. What do you have left? Got maybe nothing, but you don't have, the strait will never be open because people that own billion-dollar ships, these ships cost $1 billion, they don't like sailing ships or having their ships participate when you go up the coast and you go through the strait and there are rockets flying over your head.
So now let me just say, make a quick point, and then I want all of you to sort of chew on this. If this is the case, and that's why I said maybe he shouldn't have said it, Trump keeps saying, well, if we don't like what they do during the negotiation, we can always start bombing again. But he's just now said, I don't want to bomb again. Why? Because then the Iranians will just block the Strait of Hormuz again. And then they could threaten the world economy, and I don't want to become Herbert Hoover. So what he's essentially saying is, I don't want to go to war. And I don't want to bomb them. Because our economy can't withstand if they shut down the Strait of Hormuz. So basically, if I'm the mullahs, I'm in the driver's seat. They don't want to go to war because they can't take the economic price of us blocking the Strait of Hormuz. Okay, this was an historic memorandum of understanding that was signed yesterday officially by President Trump at the Palace of Versailles in France at the G7 summit. Iran signed it as well, the Iranian president. He did it obviously remotely. But there's no question now. Everybody agrees, wherever you are, pro-war, anti-war, like the deal, don't like the deal. This is clearly now an absolutely historic agreement, and it will have historic consequences for the foreseeable future. Now, the text line is on fire. A lot of texts are coming in. 70470. 70470. Jeff, I read the actual text of the memorandum of understanding. Everything you reported yesterday and today was true. I still support President Trump's decision to end the war, and I will tell you why. He destroyed Iran's nuclear program. He has destroyed Iran's military. He has defanged the regime for at least 10 to 15 years. It's not perfect. It's not permanent, but I'll take it. And this deal, for all of its flaws, ends the war. Interesting. Well, that's definitely that's a very legitimate point of view. It does end the war. And I think Trump, he just shattered their program. He set back their nuclear program. We're talking 10, 15 years. And militarily, Iran has been absolutely smashed. So in that sense, I think clearly we won the war. On that side of the ledger, we clearly won. Okay, this is from 781. Jeff, ending the war was necessary. On that, Trump is right. But that's not the same as giving Iran hundreds of billions of dollars. He's conflating the two issues. Well, to be fair, 781, and I'm very upset about them getting all this money. Okay, that's what gets, my blood pressure up. I think Trump was basically saying yesterday, and that's why I played the cuts, that was the price the Iranians were extracting for them to sign the deal to end the war. They knew they were holding a lot of cards. They knew they were in the driver's seat. They knew they were inflicting economic punishment and pain on the world economy, on the American economy, and that Trump did not want to preside over a potential global economic depression. And so basically Trump said, I had to give in order for them to sign. So anyway, maybe you think he gave away too much, but anyway, his argument is I had no choice. Okay, this is from 617. Jeff, I'm sorry. This deal and the war has turned into a disaster. He's not Herbert Hoover. He's Jimmy Carter now. 617-266-6868. By the way, some of you, I'm not saying that, but some of you are texting the Kuhner man saying he's Neville Chamberlain now. I think that goes a little bit too far, personally. But many of you think this is a massive sellout, and it's the ultimate appeasement of Iran. 617-266-6868. Is it CJT or CJ, Mike? CJT in Milton. Thanks for holding, CJT, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff.
Hi.
Great show as always. Thank goodness we have the Kuhner man.
Thank you.
Okay. Oh, of course. Okay, first of all, I want to say right out of the box, I am a 6-time Trump voter. Not 3 times, 6 times, including the primaries. And, not all Trump voters can say that. I'm just being honest, okay? As far as the deal, the situation is the leaders of Iran really didn't need a deal. I mean, the suffering people of Iran, needed a deal, but I don't think the leaders really care about the suffering people in Iran, And I don't know if the Democrats really needed a deal. This seemed to be an unexpected political gift for them. So I think Trump saw that. And the problem is when you're making a deal and one side doesn't really need a deal, like the leaders didn't, there's only so much you can get. We heard all along Iran doesn't hold any cards. In terms of poker, they held the ace of spades, which is the Strait of Hormuz. They held the ace of diamonds, the fact that the U.S. midterms were coming up. They had the ace of hearts, the U.S. gas prices. They had the ace of clubs, the fact that there's no elections in Iran and there are elections here. The only thing that's going to beat 4 aces is a straight flush. We didn't have the straight flush, so Trump saw it. He did what he could. We're moving on now to the midterms. Gas prices are falling. I mean, the man did what he could, and it's just time to now move on, win the midterms, monitor if Iran is going to secretly try to build a nuclear bomb. We can monitor it and take whatever actions are necessary. But, just think about the poker analogy.
Oh, I think it's a brilliant analogy. CJT, I was going to say something about, caller of the week, but if I say that, then I'm jinxing you, so I'm not saying anything. But I got to tell you, I think you're the way you were laying it out, I'm like, this is one hell of a call. This CJT knows what he's talking about. I love your analogy of the four aces, and what beats four aces, you're right, is a royal flush, and we just didn't have it. And I think you're absolutely correct. And CJT, look, I think it's obvious. Trump is now cutting his losses. He's cutting his losses to focus on the midterms. And you're right. We have to win the midterms. I'm going to talk about this in a future show. The Democrats are nominating more of these very radical left-wing. They're basically communists in primary after primary. You're going to have communists running for Congress in so many districts now that if they get a majority, it's going to be basically a communist majority in the House and in the Senate. I mean, politically, it will be a nightmare for this country if the Democrats win. So that's why Trump has to win in November. And I do agree with you. Look, there's no question. I mean, gas is already coming down. The price for a barrel of crude oil is, what is it now? $80? Less than $80? So, I went to tank up yesterday. It fell like 50, 60 cents, per gallon. Bang, just like that. So, and we still have June, the rest of June. We still have July. We still have August. We still have September. So hopefully everything will start coming down. Inflation will start coming down. The economy obviously is doing well. It's going to do even better. And Trump will maybe get the wind in his back as we've got to pull out these midterms. So I think you're right, CJT, forgive me. In the end, Trump is now playing the best hand he can. And, he's basically cutting his losses. And you're right. We're going to have to deal with Iran in the future. If they ever get close to a bomb again, we're going to have to bomb the hell out of them again. But, that's now a given. But with all that rubble and with all of their nuclear sites now smashed and destroyed, with all that enriched uranium buried under so much of that rubble, I think for at least the next 3, 4, 5 years, the Iranian nuclear problem has been neutralized. And that's no small thing. I think what kind of hurt him, CJT, was he also set expectations very high. Unconditional surrender, regime change, Iran would basically be, signing a basically terms of surrender. And look, the central mistake of the war, I think it's now very clear in retrospect, was in the planning of the war, we did not anticipate the move on the Strait of Hormuz. When Iran took over the Strait of Hormuz, they gained a huge strategic advantage. And from that point, if you notice, Trump was playing defense. And in the end, he just admitted it yesterday. That's why I had to make a deal, because they had their foot, their boot on, the neck, the economic artery of the world economy. And so what kind of angers me a little bit, CJT, is they were not in that position. The Iranians were not in that position before the war. So the irony of all ironies is, even though we've militarily defeated them, in some cases smashed them, they've actually now emerged geopolitically stronger than ever. There it is. Life is full of paradoxes. This is one of them. CJT, thank you so much for that call. Bobby in Weymouth, thanks for holding, Bobby, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff.
Hi, Bobby.
I've been listening to the whole show, and I was kind of I was really aggravated yesterday, not at you, but at what people have called you and said to you. That was really a shame. I think that before you get into a war, he should have known what could happen with the Straits. Now, I think it is, if the rest of Europe had gotten behind us, and we could have kept that strait open no matter what.
Yes.
And that would have helped with the geopolitical.
You're 1,000% correct. 1,000% correct. Please keep going, Bobby.
Europe is inundated with Iranians, and so is the U.S. And I know this might seem far-fetched and maybe, out of a spy movie, but what's to say that during those negotiations, the Iranians proved that they had 1 million sleeper cells in Europe, in the United States, and they could have proved that right then, whatever way, whether it be a phone call or something over the radio or something like that. And that also, I think that had something to do with it. Before I heard about the geopolitical stuff, I'm like, why would anybody with that much business and all that business savvy, all those brilliant minds, come up with this strategy to get out? And you give somebody that much money, they're going to find a way to buy a nuke. This is just what I think.
Oh, Bobby, I agree. That's another reason why my blood pressure was up, because that's just too much money. It's just way too much money. Look, come on. Let's, as the French would say, entre nous, among us, let's all be honest. Okay, among us girls. Let's just be honest. You're looking at $300, $400, $500 billion. They're going to get a nuclear bomb. They're just going to have to buy it. All they need is buy it from Pakistan. Now, again, they can buy multiple bombs from Pakistan. And Pakistan has publicly said, you can look it up, Google it. They are willing to sell Iran the bomb because they're a Shia power as well. They're very sympathetic to the cause of Iran. Now, will Mossad get a wind of it? Will our CIA get a wind of it in time? Hopefully we will. But, now you just wire the money. What do you want? 10 billion, 15 billion, 20 billion? Just give us 3, 4, 5 nukes. That's all you need. And the Iranians are untouchable. The regime is untouchable. They can blackmail the entire Middle East. They can blackmail Europe. And this is the threat, Bobby. And I'm not saying this, how do I say this? Just as an objective observer. I'm not making a moral value or a moral assessment. I'm just stating the facts. Israel has over 100 nuclear weapons. They just do. Okay, they have over 100 nuclear missiles. Some say as many as 200 nuclear missiles. Iran gets even one, but especially, let's say 2, 3, 4, 5 nuclear missiles. And these whack jobs conclude it's time to bring about the end of days, what they call the coming of the 12th Imam, which they keep talking about over and over again. And by the way, this is their scenario. Okay, look it up. This is Shia theology. The world must first be engulfed in a ball of fire. I'm thinking a nuclear cloud. The Jews must be destroyed. Completely annihilated, destroyed. And after this happens, then the Mahdi, as they call him, the 12th Imam, the Shia Messiah, will then descend upon the world. And you will have the final triumph, a global caliphate, a world Muslim empire. So to usher in the Armageddon, the end of days, the final triumph of Islam, whatever you want to call it, the Jews must be killed, annihilated, and they must be consumed, the world and they, the Jews, in a ball of fire. Now, you launch one nuclear bomb on Israel. Israel will hit you with everything they have. It's going to be a nuclear holocaust. And the region will be incinerated. You're looking at hundreds of millions dead. But I don't know, honestly, if the world can survive. I'm not trying to be alarmist. I'm just telling you the truth. When nukes start flying, and then China gets involved, Russia gets involved, we get involved, everybody gets involved. France, Britain, they have nuclear weapons. Everybody gets involved. You're looking at a nightmare scenario. That's why you cannot allow the mullahs to get the bomb. But if you're going to give them hundreds of billions of dollars, I'm sweating, man. I'm not going to lie to you. That makes me nervous. You can call me a wimp. You can call me every name in the book. I don't care. These people are fanatics. Look what they did with just $1.8 billion. We're looking at hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars. Listen, they don't care about schools and roads and hospitals and factories and pharmaceutical plants and, going AI and high tech and in other words, JD and Trump keep saying we want Iran to become sort of like the United Arab Emirates, Dubai. And no, that's, they're not going to be Saudi Arabia or UAE or Kuwait, where, hey, we're open for business. Come on in. Look at our skyscrapers. Hell, they're doing tourism in that part of the world. These are the crazy mullahs, man. You're talking about 7th century medieval barbarians. You give them hundreds of billions of dollars, and they're liars, and they're sneaky, and they're cunning, and they're deceptive, and they're taught by their religion to lie. It's okay to lie to the infidels, meaning us and the West. And I'm thinking, you could buy a couple of nukes and somehow sneak that in. Then what? Then the whole world's on pins and needles. Look at how they're out muscling us now. And they just got their face kicked in a war. And look how they emerged on top or whatever, emerged, in a stronger position. That's without a nuclear bomb. Can you imagine if they actually have a nuclear bomb? Here, I just want everybody, and Bobby, I'll come back to you. All of you, please, you need to hear this. This is what President Trump wrote in 2020. It was on Twitter. Okay, today X. You can look it up. Please, don't take my word for it. In 2020, here's what he said about Iran. Iran has never won a war. It has only won every negotiation. In other words, these mullahs, they absorb pain, they absorb bombing, they absorb punishment. Saddam Hussein hammered them, but they emerge on top. They keep getting hammered again and again. We bomb them. The Israelis bomb them. Everybody's bombing them. But they always come out on top in the negotiations. They have never lost a negotiation. They've never won a war like this one. We beat them on every front. In every way, we beat them. And look, they didn't lose this negotiation. I'll tell you this. They won the negotiation. Let's be honest. And we're going to give them hundreds of billions of dollars? You're playing with fire. And that's why I don't like this deal. I don't like giving them that kind of money. I would rather he just declare victory and come home. And no deal. Just don't give him anything. Bobby, final word to you. Agree, disagree?
No, I definitely disagree. Agree with you. I totally agree with you. I should have started off with what it says in the Quran about a ball of fire. Totally, Jeff. I agree with you. These people are playing for keeps. And that's just what's going to happen. They've been fighting for 2,000 years. They're going to not stop until there isn't any more.
You're right. Until the West is obliterated. Okay, let me ask you. It is the Kuhner Country poll question of the day, sponsored by Mario's. Mario's Quality Roofing, Siding, and Windows. President Trump says the Iran Memorandum of Understanding, in other words, the deal, is preferable to economic chaos. In other words, a potential global economic depression or global economic recession, which is what he feared would happen if the war continued to go on. Is he right? Is the Iran deal, the Memorandum of Understanding, the MOU, is it preferable to the alternative that Trump says would be economic chaos? A, yes. B, no. You can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner, Kuhn as in national ER. You can also vote via X, and yes, the Kuhner man was active on X last night. My handle there, all one word, at the Kuhner Report, at the Kuhner Report, Kuhner. Jerry on Cape Cod. Thanks for holding, Jerry, and welcome. Comrade, how are you, my friend?
Very well. Jeff, I'm going to go over some points here very quickly, and
Yes.
I'm going to save three for last. All sanctions lifted. United States cannot use military force versus Iran. U.S. cannot interfere in Iran, which means that they can continue to slaughter their people. The U.S. lifts its naval blockade, and the U.S. withdraws all troops from the Middle East. Iran resumes its nuclear program. Jeff, permanent end of hostilities in Lebanon. We have no right to say anything to Israel. Israel is not part of this deal, so I don't know why they made them part of this deal. $300 billion in economic development, that's the Gulf states. But, Jeff, this last one really scares the hell out of me. $24 billion in frozen economic assets. The first thing they're going to do is go shopping with Pakistan and North Korea for nuclear weapons. The minute they get their hands on that money, and that assures our mutual destruction in Israel's, because they're going to just launch nuclear bombs at us. I don't know what you think, but that's what I think, Jeff.
Jerry, let me ask you, because you're giving the most alarmist, and I'm not saying you're wrong, but you're giving the most alarmist worst case scenario. And my fear is they will buy a bomb. That is a big fear of mine. Why would President Trump give up that much? I understand he said he was under political pressure, the midterms, economic pressure, because he said the world economy was going to collapse in a couple of weeks if the Iranians kept blocking the Strait of Hormuz, and that he didn't want to be Herbert Hoover. But did he have to give up this much, number one? And number two, why? Why, essentially, did he give away the farm? What say you?
Did this deal Witkoff and Kushner?
It was Witkoff and Kushner. They were the key negotiators.
They're hacks. They both suck. But, Jeff, Kushner's got a lot to lose here. The Saudis went to him with their hat in their hand crying because they're petrified of Iran, and they invested billions with his investment firm. That's why this took place. The Saudis and some of the Gulf states, they're petrified of Iran.
Well, I mean, look at the damage they inflicted on them during the war.
And that's what all of these countries are afraid of, particularly the Saudis.
I mean, they targeted their oil infrastructure, their oil export hubs. They hit residential buildings. They brought their tourism industry to its knees. They made it impossible for them to get their oil out to the world market. Now they're going to charge essentially a fee. After 60 days, they're going to start charging a fee just for them to get their tankers through the Strait of Hormuz. Basically now this war has made, at least in the Persian Gulf, that whole area, Iran is now top dog. I got to ask you this, Jerry. Do you think Israel is going to sit on the sideline? I know Netanyahu says he won't do anything for now out of respect for President Trump, and he doesn't want to, turn America potentially or Trump into an enemy of Israel and have an open clash where Trump may, threaten to cut off aid or whatever. So he's going to lay low for a while. But can Netanyahu and the Israelis, can they allow this deal to ultimately be implemented?
Absolutely not. I think you'll see Israel hit Iran after our midterms. I think they're going to hit them hard, though.
Wait for the midterms and then bang, really hit them hard.
I think the IDF is going to send in ground troops also.
Interesting. And what will Trump do? Will Trump back Israel, or will Trump just stay on the sidelines?
That's a catch-22. He's damned if he does, and he's damned if he doesn't. But the thing that scares the hell out of me the most here, Jeff, is the fact of them getting $24 billion in frozen economic assets. The first thing they're going to do is buy bombs.
Oh, I'm with you. And they get that within, a couple days. So, and they get to start selling oil right away as well. So they're going to get a lot of cash. Comrade, as always, thank you very much for that call. That's why if you want to know, you just go online. Don't take my word for it. Every newspaper in Israel is denouncing this deal. Every news outlet, every member of the Netanyahu government, every member of the coalition. Okay, let me just run something by you. This is a point that Mike has made to me. And look, it's a very interesting point. So, Mike and I always, with Sandy, obviously, before the show, we do pre-show production and we do a pre-show meeting. And Mike said, look, Jeff, I like the deal. I mean, I'm not saying it's my dream deal, but he said, I like the deal. And I said, well, why, Mike? He goes, it ends the war, which is very important. It's definitely going to lead to much lower gas and oil prices and energy prices and inflation overall, which is good for Mike. He says it's going to help me personally. It's going to help a lot of normal Americans like me. That's how he referred to himself. He goes, I'm just a normal American, Jeff. That's all I am. And I'll tell you what I'm going to see. I'm going to see lower prices at the pump. I'm going to see lower prices when I go to the grocery store or whatever. I need to buy something. And the fighting is over. And yeah, they're going to get a lot of money, but I trust Donald Trump will make sure they don't get a nuclear weapon, period. And if we see that they are close to getting a weapon or developing a weapon, then we will bomb them like we've bombed them in the past. And so Mike's position is basically take it easy. It's not that bad of a deal. The sky is not falling. It's not going to fall. And that he thinks most normal Americans like him will ultimately not care so much about how much we're giving Iran, how much money they're getting, a lot of the provisions in the deal, that what they care about is that A, the war is over, B, gas will come down, C, this will help with the affordability crisis, and that Iran has taken a military beating, and that at least for the foreseeable future, they will not be able to acquire a nuclear weapon because their nuclear enrichment program and their stockpile is buried under tons of rubble, and all their nuclear sites have been utterly smashed and destroyed. So Mike was saying, he goes, I think it's going to be a popular deal, and I think it's going to help him win the midterms. At a bare minimum, it's going to help with gas, with oil, with inflation, and it's going to give Trump the latitude, the flexibility to pivot and really focus on the midterms without this war being an albatross around his neck. Mike, did I sum up your position accurately? I don't want to, put words in your mouth. Just about? Why you say just about? All right. Yeah. Okay. So Mike says yes. That's pretty much my position. Okay. So I'm just curious. What do you think of what Mike said? I mean, do you agree with Mike? Do you disagree with Mike? Tom in Framingham. Thanks for holding, Tom, and welcome.
Hello, Jeff.
Hi, Tom. Go ahead.
How you doing? If you compare this deal with the JCPOA, the results are much worse. And listen, I don't like Obama. I never did. But let's see. Jerry and the Cape already talked about this deal, but JCPOA, and Trump keeps constantly talking about this. They got $150 billion in lifted sanctions. They got $1.7 billion sent over in cash in various denominations, sent over in a cargo plane. They quashed Operation Cassandra, which you probably know about, but I won't get into here. And Now let's look at the Trump deal. And they lifted sanctions. Let's look at the Trump deal. Okay, he lifts sanctions. They get $300 billion from supposedly other banks besides the U.S. Although I'll tell you this, I think some of that money is probably coming from U.S. funds and Qatari banks or Emirate banks. And of course, the Iranians now get to charge service fees going through the Straits of Hormuz. And so, the results are worse. The results of this deal are worse. I mean, let's face it. So one of the things Trump needs to stop doing is, stop talking. I know he's directionally correct, but stop babbling about those terms in the JCPOA. The JCPOA was horrible, and it showed what pimps Bob Corker and John McCain really were. Now, there's one other thing I keep hearing people talk about. This will never make it through Congress. It might not make it through without Trump having to override a veto. And simply this: if there's a resolution of disapproval in both houses, if they were to pass it, which I doubt they even will, but if they were, Trump could just veto it, and he'd need a 2/3 override in both houses, a 2/3 vote in both houses to override it. So, if he really wants it to go through, it's going to go through Congress. One other thing about the JCPOA, I'll be really quick. Mark Levin was constantly whining about, we got to make this a treaty. This has got to be a treaty. He's doing the same thing now. Okay, this is more unattainium by Mark Levin. Mark Levin, we keep hearing the same warmed over crap he's a leftover from the 80s where he was Ed Meese's bum washer during the Reagan administration. And here's the thing. It's never going to be considered a treaty, all right? So that's out the door.
Oh, you're right. You're dead on. I count every count, Tom. You're absolutely correct. And look, look, it's Mark Levin. I don't care. Wait, let that go. I don't care. No, the thing about Mark Levin is he was the one that said, if you oppose the war, if you oppose the president on Iran, you're a traitor. His words, you're a traitor. Well, now he's come out gangbusters against this deal because he says it's bad for Israel, which, by the way, it is bad for Israel. But he is blasting this deal and he's attacking the president. So by his own standard, so what? Are you a traitor now, Mark? Because that's what you called me. When I warned and I said, I don't know. This is not going to be a cakewalk. I think everybody's underestimating the mullahs here. Oh, I'm a traitor. I'm a woke, I'm part of the woke Third Reich. That was the shit. That was the personal vilification. And that's what he does. He just spits on people, insults people when he can't debate with them. And now he's dead set against this deal. He's dead set against Trump. Now Trump has betrayed him, betrayed the Jews, betrayed Israel, betrayed everybody. And now all this guy does is dump on Trump. So, look, I don't take him seriously. I haven't taken him serious. This is a guy that wants us to go to war with Russia. This is a guy that wanted us to be in Iraq for 100 years. This is a guy that wants us to ultimately go to war with China. He's, as I said, he's the Lindsey Graham of talk radio. He's a warmonger who never met a war he didn't like. And if you listen to people like him, I'm telling you, you're going to have a third world war. 617-266-6868 is the number. All right, let me throw a very, very quick log on the fire, as I like to say. Do you think this deal will help or hurt Trump in the midterms? Whatever you think of the merits of the deal yourself, do you think the fact that now he signed it, the Iranians have now signed it, we all know the provisions now that are in it, Do you think the American people will find it overall favorable? Maybe the results or the consequences. It should lead to lower gas, oil prices. Inflation should start to come down. Obviously, the war will be behind us, we hope. And so, do you think that this will help Trump win the midterms or do better in the midterms? Or do you think the Democrats will use it as a bludgeon, as a stick to hit Trump with again and again and again? Is this deal politically advantageous to the president going into the midterm elections or a liability going into the elections? Mike in Lynn. Thanks for holding, Mike, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff. Good morning.
Hi, Mike. Good morning, Mike.
Okay, let me be like a needle, a record player needle skimming across the record. I'm going to hit a couple of things real quick and like sliding. Number one, Trump is the man. You are the man. iHeart has the top shows from 6 a.m. right through up to midnight. And you know all the names, and your listeners know all the names. They make insomnias acts out of us. But they are the best. And I thank them. I thank you. And the listeners that call in from Arthur to CJ to on and on, it's not fair to just name a couple of names, all of them. I believe Trump is, on top of the game. The man is now fatigued. He's compassionate. He knows that if he goes in and bombs that place, which, to be honest with you, I'm that type of guy. If somebody steps up and does what they had done, they ought to be annihilated. However, there's the Persians, the civilians, the 80 million, and the 40,000 that got massacred by the current regime. He knows that. I know that. Your smart listeners know that. We do not want to demolish their infrastructure. They're already starving. My connections with the previous regime's people, and I'll say the name Fadaust, the head of the IRG under the Shah was Fadaust. I was very, very, very connected with that family. And I was told things a couple of years ago. The people were getting so oppressed, they were dying, they were looking to get out of there, the protesters. Obama did nothing to support them in 2009. And that's why they got mowed down again, this regime. I think Trump should get out of there as fast as he possibly can. He's done as much as he can. He'd love to do more. But I think he has to get out of there, keep a vigilant eye on them trying to acquire the bomb with the money being released. And you're absolutely right. You give them a lot of money. Hey, look at what Obama did. He threw them pallets of billions of dollars, and Biden was a complete puppet for Obama's third term. We all know that. You give them money, everybody has a price, meaning everything has a price. They're going to try to get it from other places, I believe, and our people have to, up in the upper agencies and intelligence, etc., are watching them and have to do that. And if they go for that, then we annihilate them, and they know. But the world is too dangerous with people whipping missiles and people that have the nukes, Pakistan, India, Israel. We have to pray for prayer. I've had prayers answered and miracles seen that I'd attest to and take a lie detector test for. God answers those that pray to him. It sounds so simple, sounds so crazy to think like that.
No,
only.
It's not.
But
no, it's not, Mike. You're completely right. Look, I pray. I pray very often, and God does listen, and God does answer prayers. I know for a fact. So I think you're right. We should pray. We should pray for our president, because this is a very tough time, and we should pray for America. We should pray for the West. We should definitely pray for Israel, and we should pray for the poor people who are suffering in Iran under this brutal theocratic, totalitarian regime. This is an Islamo-fascist regime. And you're right. They don't care about their people. They enslave their people. They brutalize their people. They massacre and mow down their people. And they've been emboldened now. They think now that they're in the driver's seat. And you don't want people like that. Hubris with these people is a very dangerous thing. So I'm with you all the way, Mike, all the way. And look, we have to pray. And look, Trump will never allow, I believe this with all my heart, Trump will never allow Iran to get the bomb. I truly believe that. Now, the one thing that does worry me, because we have to look at the world as it is, not as we wish it would be, you can just do a simple Google search. It costs $4 billion to purchase a nuclear weapon. That's basically the going price. I mean, give or take, a little bit here, a little bit there, but it's basically, let's say, $4 billion. Well, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but with the $24 billion that's going to be released in the next couple of days from these frozen assets, that can get you 6 right there. Hell, it's 3 or 4. I mean, they don't need more than that. And then we're in big trouble. So Mossad has to be on the ball. Our CIA has to be on the ball. Our allies in the Gulf, all of them, from Saudi Arabia to Kuwait to Qatar to the United Arab Emirates. Look, the Persian Gulf countries do not want Iran with a nuclear bomb. If you think we're afraid, they're doubly afraid. So their intelligence services, they have to be on the ball. And we have to watch Pakistan in particular like a hawk, because they've said openly that they are willing to sell it to the Iranians. Now, just because you say you will, just because you say you want to, doesn't mean it's going to happen. I get that. But, Mike, we need now our intelligence to be absolutely 100% ironclad. There's no room for error now, especially with all this cash now pouring into Iran. So, yeah, we do need to pray. And hopefully God will answer our prayers. Mike, I love the call. Thank you so much, my friend. And thank you for the kind words. I appreciate it. 617-266-6868. But, $4 billion. You'd think it would be more. But basically, $4 billion will get you a nuclear weapon. Think about that. That's it? $4 billion? That's why when you think of the cost of developing the bomb, in some ways, it's just cheaper to buy it on the black market. But anyway, 617-266-6868. Let that go, as I like to say. Dan in Florida. Thanks for holding, Dan, and welcome.
Yeah, my brother from another mother.
Dan, buddy, what do you make of all this?
Jeff, I think the world's gone crazy, Jeff. People, what? You had a caller a little while ago. I forget who it was, but I love his calls usually. I love his calls. But Jared Kushner is now Hunter Biden. Jared Kushner is chasing Saudi Arabia for investments, and we've turned him into Hunter Biden. Wickoff and Jared Kushner, they went out and they brought in the Abraham Accords, right?
Yes.
They did that, Jeff.
Yes.
These guys are both peace lovers. They want peace in the Mideast. And to try to lump them in with Jared Kushner, but that's not that. So that got me off track. I was listening while I was on hold, and I'm like, no. But anyways, get me all excited, Jeff. But so all of a sudden, the guy we voted for, like most people, and I'm sure you were there. Not 3 times like the earlier caller said, but 6 times we voted for him, Jeff. That guy is all of a sudden an idiot. We all hate him. The guy who plays 3D chess and thinks, long term and moving a lot of pieces. So what do we get, Jeff? The UAE has left OPEC. Nobody's talking about BRICS right now. Nobody's talking about it. Right? Saudi Arabia has reenacted a pipeline so they avoid the strait, right?
Yes.
So Asia is buying oil from us. Japan, South Korea, Singapore, Thailand, and Taiwan are all buying oil from us right now, Jeff. We've boosted the Western Hemisphere oil fields off the charts. We will now. So Jeff, I fly a lot. I'm around a lot. I'll always love to strike up a conversation. So I got stuck on Southwest. I don't know. It's about 5 years ago. I got stuck on a Southwest flight, and I couldn't pick my seat. I ended up having to sit between two guys. And I'll never forget. I sat down, and one of the guys says, "Well, we's friends, and if you sit here, we'll all be friends by the end." And I thought a little bit like Deliverance, but I was okay. But one guy owns oil rigs, the other guy sells them. So I took a 2.5-hour education on anything you could learn about oil rigs. And I remember them telling me that if oil gets below $60 a barrel, they stop pumping. They can't make money off of it. So that was over 5 years ago, Jeff. So what's that mean today with inflation? So we were at, prior to this quote unquote conflict, we were at $58 a barrel, Jeff. Listening?
I'm listening. So you're saying that basically Trump has pulled off another win for the United States, correct?
A big win. This was all an oil play, right? Now, he knows he can't trust the Iranians. He knows, but what did we do, though, Jeff? They killed levels of succession until they found a gay Ayatollah. They didn't go to kill him, Jeff. What are the Iranian people going to say? The hard clerics, the hardliners, the super religious, hardliners. What are they going to say when they plug in a gay Ayatollah?
Are they going to throw him off a rooftop? That's what I want to know, Dan.
I called back in probably March when things first started, and I said our real goal is to break up Iran, and that's what will end up happening. They will end up fighting amongst each other, amongst themselves, and we will end up breaking up Iran. But they make one wrong move, he can now say, "Look, I gave them the deal of a lifetime, and they blew it. Now we're just going to wipe them out."
Dan, from your lips to God's ears, because look, what I heard Trump say, and I played the cuts, is I made this deal under economic pressure because as long as they have control over the Strait of Hormuz, essentially the world economy is being held hostage. And if the war continued, we're looking at, soaring gas prices, soaring oil prices, maybe the world tipping into a recession or a global depression. And I don't want to end up being Herbert Hoover. So, yeah, you're right. We can always resume the bombing, but I think the problem now is we resume the bombing, they will just block the Strait of Hormuz automatically, and then we're back to square one. And that's why, Dan, I think I want to ask you, this is the ultimate question. I think historians are going to ask this question. I think journalists are going to ask this question. I think this is, when Trump leaves office, this question he will be asked again and again. When he launched Operation Epic Fury, and you're right, the initial days, it was brilliant. I mean, the Ayatollah gets knocked off. The political leadership is decapitated. The country is clearly on the ropes. We're hitting all of the key military targets. The IRGC leadership is being wiped out. I mean, it's blow after blow after blow. Why didn't we send in our Navy to secure the Strait of Hormuz? Why did we leave it open for the Iranians to then come in and block it? Why were we not prepared for that? What's your answer? I'm just curious.
I think the details are in what's not being told to us, Jeff. The Strait of Hormuz is 21 miles wide at the choke point. 21 miles of navigable waterway at the choke point. Jeff, I'm a boater, right?
Yes.
I belong to a yacht club in Florida and a yacht club in Boston, right? I'm pretty sure I could have rounded up my buddies at the yacht club to secure that water, Jeff.
Dan, as always, thank you very, very much for that call. I really appreciate it. To me, that was, again, I don't want to repeat myself, but that to me was the central mistake of the war. Had we secured the strait early, it's over. Game, set, and match. I mean, the mullahs would have had to sue for peace because that was their leverage, and they milked it for all it was worth. Anyway, just my opinion. Andy in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Andy, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff, a couple of points.
Yes, Andy.
I'm all on board with Mike's positive analogy. I feel the same way as Mike. And yesterday, I think your blood pressure might have been up a little. You got to calm down, Jeff. For the first time, I had to turn you off, Jeff, and I hate to do that. But I still love you in a non-sexual way anyways.
Thank you. Thank you, Andy.
I love your show. It's just great. But yesterday I was a little bit, I started getting depressed, and I said, you know what? I don't do this, but I had to turn it off. Anyways, my crystal ball tells me that Trump will come out triumphantly in the end. He's going to get the economy rolling, get the midterms going, do good in the midterms, and let it go from there. And then if something happens, which we know they can't be trusted, the Iranians, and they will act up. And I'm just going to say that's when it's time to let loose and give them the whole 9 yards. And as far as caller of the week, I think I'm not giving one, but I'm giving 3 gold stars to CJT, the way he laid out the deck perfectly. So.
Andy, why would you, now you jinx the poor guy. Just because, you said it, it should be, the CJT should be the caller of the week. Now Mike won't do it. Why would you, Andy, why would you do that? Andy, I can just tell you this. President Trump has now come out with a Truth Social. And again, I understand his argument. He's got a very strong argument. I'm not saying it's a weak argument. In fact, the opposite. But it's the insults. And I don't know why he does that, because he's insulting many of his own voters, many of his own supporters. In fact, the people he's directing this one to are, actually it's Mark Levin, but others like him, people who, supported him during the war, and now they're not happy with the peace deal. So basically, let me just sum it up for you. Trump says, you're a fool. Everybody who is opposing the deal is a quote-unquote fool. Why are you a fool? You're a fool because, according to him, after the deal, the stock market has now hit a record high, smashing a record. Oil prices are tumbling down. And so this shows that the deal is an absolute success. And if you can't see that, according to Trump, I'm just telling you, literally that's what he said, you're an absolute fool. Now, look, he's the president. He can say whatever he wants. He's got, to me, of course he has the First Amendment right to say it. I'm just saying as a supporter. Now, I got a thick skin. You can call me names all you want. I don't care. I'm still going to vote for the guy. I vote on policy. I vote on what's good for the country. But, these are people that have supported you for 10 years, who supported you even during the war. They're just not happy with the deal. Now, you can explain to them what's good about the deal and persuade them. But if you're throwing insults and calling them fools and idiots, I don't see what that gets you. See, I like it when he goes after the left. Those are his enemies. But when you start going after your own voters, and I got to say this, quoting the late Rush Limbaugh, Rush famously said, no matter how many indictments Trump faces, no matter how many attacks are leveled against him by the media, by the Democrats, no matter how many impeachments, no matter what, Trump will never they can never break Trump's bond with his voters. They just can't. The only one who can break this sacred bond between Trump and his voters is Trump. I'm almost giving you like word for word. This is what Rush Limbaugh said, one of the last things he said before he passed away. And what he was trying to say was warning to the president. don't insult your own voters. Don't turn on your own voters. Because if you do, then they're going to start to turn on you. No one's going to break your bond. The only one who can break that bond is you. Lines are blazing. All right, let me ask all of you. President Trump now, it's done. It's official. He has signed the memorandum of understanding. So has the Iranian leadership. It is now official. Both countries have now signed. There is an official ceasefire in place. Negotiations now for 60 days will be launched on Friday. That is the second phase of the agreement. And my question now to you, very simple. Do you support the terms of the peace deal? 617-266-6868. Bob in South Boston. Thanks for holding, Bob, and welcome. Bob, do we have you? All right, let's see if we can reconnect with Bob. Mike, what do you want me to go to now? Brian in Hopedale. Thanks for holding, Brian, and welcome.
How you doing, Jeff?
I'm good. How are you, Brian?
Good. I'm not bad with this deal at all. One of the things I think people are missing is what's going on in Iran right now. Is you have 5 of the largest cities in Iran. 4 of them have already been taken over by forces, primarily loyalists to the what's called the Crown Prince. How do you say his name? Pahlavi?
Pahlavi, yes.
Yeah. So I think that's a very significant thing. Furthermore, in Iran, you've got the IRGC, but you also have an Iranian army. They're 2 different entities. And the Iranian army, what members of that, or the former members of that, there's really nothing left, have been fighting with the remaining members of the IRGC, and they're part of this loyalist operation, or these other factions that are taking over these large cities in Iran. So whatever this deal says now, I think the faces are going to change that they're going to deal with in a matter of weeks. We're not talking, months, or it might not even last 60 days. The whole set of people that they're going to be dealing with is going to change. And I think it's going to be for the better for the United States and for Trump. So,
if you're talking about an internal uprising or the Iranian military basically overthrowing or dislodging the IRGC and the mullahs, then you're completely right. I mean, that to me that's why I thought was going to be the end goal of the war. That's a different Iran. That's a radically different Iran. That's a normal Iran. That's a pro-Western Iran. That's a pro-peace Iran. It's a completely different country with that kind of leadership. What I'm concerned about, Brian, is the deal expressly says, and I mean, I read all the clauses in the first 45 minutes of the show. The deal is adamant that the United States agrees to not interfere in the internal affairs of Iran, and that they must respect Iran's sovereignty, meaning we cannot help the internal opposition. We can't support them. We can't fund them. We can't train them. We can't arm them. We can't do anything, or else the deal is automatically null and void. I couldn't believe that they agreed to the clause, but they did. And that clause was put in deliberately by the IRGC, exactly to the point that you're saying. They know that we're hoping that eventually the Iranian people will rise up. And the one thing they don't want is for us to help or empower the Iranian people to rise up. And so basically now, because of this deal, it's one of the reasons why I'm against the deal, is because basically we've now told the pro-democracy movement, the opposition, you're on your own. You're on your own. And to me, that leaves them twisting in the wind. Now, remember, if they were armed, it would be a different story. They could fight back, but they don't have a Second Amendment like we do. So the problem is they're very brave, they're very courageous, but they don't have weapons. And without weapons, they're going to get slaughtered. as they've been slaughtered again and again and again. And so what I was hoping is that, and the Israelis have been pushing for this, but Trump said no. This was early on in the war, so it's water under the bridge. But the Israelis were saying, let's arm the Kurds. The Israelis were saying, let's arm some of these opposition groups inside Iran. And Trump said, absolutely not. I don't want that. It'll lead to a civil war. It'll lead to chaos. We want a stable Iran for the good of the region and the good of the world. So Trump nixed that idea. But my point is just this. If they don't have weapons, it's going to be very hard for them. I know you're saying the military may be breaking away, but if they don't have weapons, it's very hard to overthrow this regime. And the one thing this regime has proven, Brian, for the last 47 years, they are resilient. I mean, how many uprisings have they faced down again and again and again? And now with all the money that's going to be pouring in, I think they can be in power potentially for another 47 years. I hope I'm wrong. Brian, thank you very much for that call. I really appreciate it. I hope I'm wrong. Believe me, I want the mullahs to be overthrown. Nothing would make me happier. But to me, what this deal does is that it makes their position even stronger than before the war began. Okay, do you support the deal or don't support the deal? And how do you think it's going to play out in the midterms? Is it a winner for Trump or will it be an albatross around his neck? Bob in South Boston. Thanks for holding, Bob, and welcome.
Jeff, I think everybody needs to realize this war needs to be behind us, right, immediately, because we, the people, are going to be voting in stuff. And if things stay the way they are, I mean, you could lose the House. You're going to lose to the point where Trump's agenda is going to be shut down, and you have nothing but nonsense impeachment on the 24th. I mean, we got to do something. We got to put this behind us. And if they step out of line, buying anything, or doing anything, right, then the war's back on. So, like, people are going to chill out. I like the guy Mike, who was like, just play. Listen, you got to take this off Trump's plate and stop using it for a weapon to beat his head. Because this is, it would be a tragedy if the House was to flip. I don't think the Senate's going to flip, but I just want to be able to see him finish out his term, be able to do things that he like to do. You know what I mean? So,
oh, Bob, I'm with you. Look, and that's the Democrats are licking their chops. They think they have the midterms already won. I think they're making a big mistake. Again, overconfidence. Oh, see, look, whatever you think about the war, I think in retrospect, we were overconfident about our abilities and we underestimated the Iranian regime. I mean, we just did. And to me, taking it, in sports and life, you overestimate yourself and you underestimate your opponent, it always gets you into trouble. And I think the Democrats now are committing the exact same error. They are way overestimating their strength, and I think they're underestimating Trump and the Republicans. And Bob, I got to tell you, I'm looking at these candidates now that they are nominating, winning primaries in race after race. I don't just mean, local races. I'm talking for Congress. I'm talking for Senate. Graham Plattner is the obvious example, but there are so many others. This, I think, is Trump's ace in the hole. They are nominating some of the most dangerous, extreme, left-wing, socialist, communist Democrats I have ever seen. And they get more and more strange and more radical and more extreme. It's like one is crazier than the other. And I got to say, Trump had a devastating line yesterday at the G7 when he was going to the media and said, you guys have been calling me a Nazi for 10 years. 10 years you've been calling me a Nazi. And then you turn around and your party nominates a Nazi to run for the Senate in Maine. And every single one of you are silent. I mean, he destroyed him. He took a blowtorch to him. But he's right. So they're now actually running Nazis. The SS freaking tattoo for 18 years on the guy's chest that he's proud of. So that, I think, is Trump's ace in the hole, where I think the American people are going to say, well, let's say you didn't like the Iran war as an example, or you didn't like the high gas prices for all these months. You're going to say, I'm not crazy about the war. I thought he would bring inflation down quicker, and I thought he'd be focused more on domestic affairs. But, oh, my God, them? Have these lunatics run the country in Congress? Absolutely not. So I think they're underestimating Trump again, and I think they're overestimating themselves. Because, Bob, I got to tell you, you're not 100, you're 1,000% correct. The Democrats have already said this. They're going to give him 3 impeachments in a row. In a row. They gave him 2 his first term. They said it's going to be 3. In other words, it's 2 years of impeachments. They're going to impeach his cabinet. It's never been done before. The whole cabinet. They're going to go after one, after another, They're going to impeach J.D. Vance. They're going to impeach Rubio. They're going to impeach Hegseth. They're going to impeach Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary. They're going to impeach Robert F. Kennedy Jr. And they're going to reopen the border. They're going to defund ICE, effectively abolish ICE. You don't have ICE agents. You don't have Customs and Border Patrol. The illegals are coming in by the millions. So it's going to be a political civil war. Trump said yesterday, and he's right. He goes, you don't understand. I'm looking at internal polling. This war now is politically, it's an I've been using that term albatross, but it's killing me to the point that if the Democrats take over the Senate, forget impeaching me in the House. They may end up finding me guilty. Enough rhinos cross the aisle, and I could be convicted. Like, in other words, he's saying, look, man, basically, I got to cut my losses. Now, he's saying, look, I've done a lot. We've destroyed Iran's military. We've set back their nuclear program. Oil prices are now starting to come down. The war is now over. The stock market is starting to really boom. It's smashing. It's hitting records. In other words, let's get this golden age underway now, because we need this golden age to pull out the midterms. But he's also saying, I can't afford to lose. The country can't afford to lose if the Democrats come back to power. So I'm with you, Bob. This is a very dangerous, very radical Democratic Party. It's more radical, believe it or not, than under Obama. It's more radical than even under Joe Biden. It's even more radical than Kamala Harris. You're talking now Mamdani, Graham Plattner, Jasmine Crockett, Bernie Sanders. You're talking about left-wing lunatics, real left-wing lunatics. And, Bob, they want Trump's scalp. They're not going to stop. And I could keep going on and on, but I mean, they want to pack the Supreme Court. They're bragging about it. They go, no, we're going to pack it. We start off with 13 and we're going to end up with 21 Supreme Court justices. We're going to abolish the Electoral College. They're openly saying it. They're going to blow up the filibuster. Everything 50+1. Should they get back to power? They want to make Puerto Rico and Washington, D.C. states. That's going to give them 4 extra senators. Full amnesty to every single illegal alien. The border wide open. They want another 20, 25 million pouring in. I mean, Bob, this is a declaration of war on the United States. And I'm just getting just the tip of the iceberg. So, he's got to win in November. I'm sorry. The Democrats have to lose. The Republicans have to win. Period. Full stop. I have never supported Susan Collins in my life, Bob. I think she's a rhino. If I'm in Maine, I'm holding my nose, but I'm voting for her over Graham Plattner. It's a no-brainer. No-brainer. Bob, final word to you.
I mean, like, this is a Louisville Slugger, this war, right? To beat Trump into smithereens, okay? So that he's powerless. So if people want to, like, critique every friggin' detail about this agreement, right?
Andrew in Barnstable. Thanks for holding, Andrew, and welcome.
Thanks, Joe. Jeff, first time, long time.
Welcome, Andrew. Welcome.
I guess I'll play closer here. First, I'll answer the two questions that you posed. One of which is the deal itself. And to be honest, we don't have a deal until the uranium leaves Iran. That's just the bottom line. Until that happens, all deals are off. Number two, as for how this plays in the midterms, that's all going to come down to two things. Number one is pocketbooks, and that's the drop in price of oil and its impact on other commodities. And then the second is that it's got to be, this whole thing has to ultimately be messaged above and beyond the context of just the deal itself. And what I mean by that is, as I said when I first called, one of the things I've not heard anybody talk about, and I think it's a really overlooked issue, is the strategic changes that took place as a result of these two efforts on bombing Iran, the earlier one in 25 and the more recent one. And that is that this has changed the whole geographic identity for the Middle East, because we've demonstrated with Israel that Iran is touchable. And for the last 47 years, people have been afraid to attack Iran because they thought it was going to lead to a much greater war in the broader Middle East. And what the result has actually been is it's driven more of the Middle East closer to Israel than away from Iran. The second thing is it's demonstrated, while they do have a lot of weapons, ultimately they're touchable. Well, we defeated their missile defenses in minutes. It's also demonstrated to other countries that are buying those same defensive programs from Russia and China that they're effectively garbage if they're going against U.S. war machines. And then the other component of this is I think you have to make the correlation to what's going on between Ukraine and Russia. And the difference between Iran and the U.S. and Ukraine and Russia is no one in NATO dare attacks Russia because they have nuclear weapons. If Iran had a nuclear weapon, this whole dynamic would be different. But effectively, Russia is a paper tiger too, except it has nuclear weapons. So that's why it was so important for us to demonstrate that Iran is touchable and that we can come back in at our wish, at our time of choosing, to continue closing the deal if necessary. I mean, it's a whole different world now because of what Israel and the U.S. have done, and especially with regard to the degree to which Israel has completely infiltrated Iran's infrastructure to be able to basically tap them on the shoulder and have them taken out, whether it's a bomb in an apartment or a bomb on a meeting of the highest-ranking Iranian leadership.
Well, nobody's safe in Iran now in terms of the leadership, and they know that. And I think that's an excellent point. And you're also right that Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, the UAE, Qatar even, Bahrain are much closer to Iran, much closer now, than before the war. There's no question. They share a common enemy. They share a common foe. You can see that. So I think in many ways, Iran has badly overplayed their hand. I agree with you. And look, we've bloodied them. We've really bloodied them. There's no question about it. And they are fragile. They are divided. Much of their population resents them. So they're not as strong as they're projecting. And I think the other big development, Andrew, is it's an unintended consequence. But by doing what they did in the Strait of Hormuz, yes, Trump is right. They did threaten the world economy, and they did threaten to potentially, trigger a global recession or even a global depression. But what they've also done, Saudi Arabia now has joined with Israel to build a massive pipeline on land to bypass the Strait of Hormuz. Qatar now wants in. The United Arab Emirates wants in. So all of these Gulf states, rich in oil, are saying, we don't want to be dependent on the Strait of Hormuz anymore to get our, our products and our oil and our energy and our natural gas out. We want land. We want, land pipelines. So I think what's going to happen over the next couple of years is that the importance of the Strait of Hormuz is going to go down to the point that I don't want to say it's going to become irrelevant, but it's not going to be as strategically vital as it is now. Far from it. So again, if I were Iran, yeah, you're sitting on the strait. I get it. It's a strategic advantage. There's no doubt about it. But that's, that's not going to last forever. And then what? And you're right. What this war has now shown is you can bomb Iran and you can hurt Iran, badly hurt Iran. So my prediction, Andrew, I think this is not the end.